Hey guys, so in this section, we're going to go over credentialing and the task list requirements in order to become an RBT. So in the beginning text of this section, there are the three different main requirements that we need to be aware of when applying to become an RBT. Hopefully you guys have read over the second edition requirements, the basics about the initial competency assessment, and the RBT handbook that the board put out about a couple months back that has a ton of information about everything you would possibly need to know about applying to become an RBT. So in this presentation, I want to mainly go over the RBT handbook. We'll give you a good overview about how to apply to become an RBT, everything you possibly need to know about the test itself, everything you need to study, and all like the paperwork and guidelines and maintenance requirements that you need to keep your RBT credentialed. So I may have mentioned in the few previous sections and in this section in the text already about the BACB, or mentioned about the board. So what is that? That is the Behavior Analyst Certification Board. And they are a nonprofit organization created to provide the credentialing needs of anybody who provides behavior analytical services. So they manage the credentials of the BCBAs, who are the master's level behavior analytical implementers, the BCABAs, who are the bachelor's level credential holders who can supervise RBTs. BCBAs could also supervise RBTs, but the BCABAs can't practice independently. They need to be under the supervision of a BCBA. And there's the RBTs themselves, which are you guys, hopefully, eventually after you take the test and get the credential of RBT, that's the high school level implementers of ABA. Then there's the BCBADs, who are the doctoral levels, who could also supervise every single level below that, all right? So the goal of the board is to protect those who receive behavior analytical services by ensuring those who have a credential hold a higher standard in their practice. So that means any clients that you're seeing, or any like student who receives ABA services, will be protected because those who are credentialed need to hold a high level standard of education. All right, so for you guys taking the course, what is an RBT? Why would you want to be one? Why are you taking this course right now? All right, so the board itself, the BACB, defines a registered behavioral technician as a paraprofessional certified in behavior analysis. All right, so that's a high school level professional that's practicing working directly with clients under the supervision of a BCABA, a BCBA, or a BCBAD, okay, who regularly implements ABA services to those students and those clients that you might see at school or in a in-home service. So the RBT credential was created to work in settings where a BCBA or BCABA is already providing behavior analytical services. So I've mentioned before, like a clinic setting, in-home, school, things like that. Okay. So more and more school districts have begun to incorporate RBTs into the classrooms. So I've seen more and more public schools try to implement ABA services and train a lot of their paras as RBTs. So that makes a bit of a problem, where I'll just tell you guys right now that all the potential RBTs that are going for their certification might not have a BCBA or BCABA on hand to provide supervision for you guys. So I want you guys to make sure before you are applying for the RBT, or if you're just starting in this course, to make sure that you have a BCBA or BCABA or BCBAD on staff to be able to provide you guys with supervision. So if you don't have one, you won't be able to take the competency assessment after this course or sit for the board. You need to have one on hand so you can apply for that on the board website, because those supervisors are linked directly to you. And if you don't have supervision, you won't be able to practice as an RBT. So some benefits to holding the RBT credential. As with all the credentials given by the board, the RBT credential shows that you're capable of delivering behavior analytical services. So that means people will see the RBT credential and that'll show that you've taken your training courses, passed the board exam, and continue to provide a quality level of behavior analytical services. Also, being an RBT protects your clients by showing you that you meet your yearly maintenance and initial requirements. So that means continuing education throughout your entire RBT credential. All right. It's also easier to get a job as employers will recognize your credentials so that they can look online on the board site and see that you have that RBT credential. Obviously, it's better than not even having any credential. And lastly, people know what it is. So the board itself is the only organization right now that certifies behavior analytical professionals. And there's nothing else that competes against that. So once you have your RBT credential, they'll know that you're well-trained and in capable hands. All right, a quick overview of the RBT eligibility requirements. You might have already read this already in the handbook, but I just want to go over it again. So according to the board itself, all applicants must be at least 18 years old, have a high school level education or higher. They'll pass a background check. So usually when you're applying, your employer will already usually have the background check done. They'll be the ones that forward that to the board. You need to complete a 40-hour training, which is this course. So you guys already have that set. And you need to complete an initial competency assessment. So the competency assessment is not the exam at the end of this course or the exam taking at a test center to get the RBT credential. It's actually part interview and an observation done by a supervisor, so a BCABA, BCBA, BCBAD, which will have you demonstrate all the skills you've learned in this course and anything you've done in the field so far with one of your clients or your students, okay? So when you go to take this, you should already have a supervisor on hand and a client or a student that you're already comfortable with working with to be able to get this done, okay? And lastly, there's a couple paperwork things that you have to fill out and just send for the board and wait for approval. It usually takes a couple weeks for them to get back to you before they approve you just to be able to take the exam. And then once you do that, you actually have to sign up again with a separate testing center, go there and take the exam. Just recently, due to the coronavirus, actually, they allowed people to take the RBT certification exam online through a proctored test. Okay, so you'll still have somebody watching you do it online, but you can take it from home for now. All right, so you got all your initial work done, you got everything into the board, you passed your tests. What happens after that? You get your RBT credential. So once you pass your RBT credential exam, it's the only credential by the board that will tell you right away if you pass your exam. So you're sitting on your computer, you take the test, you hit submit, pops up right on the screen if you pass or not. So that's one benefit of the RBT credential that none of the other ones have. Once you finish that, on the board website, you'll receive your credentialing ID number on your portal account. And you could start using that credential immediately. If people ask you for your ID number, you just look it up on the website, you have it there. Employers are looking for you. You'll appear on the board website, your name, your information, and your credentialing ID number. After a couple weeks, you'll receive a welcoming letter in the mail from the board. You'll get a nice credential sheet that you can hang up on your wall, has your ID number, everything. And lastly, like I mentioned before, your employers could locate your credential on the board website to make it easier for them when applying for a new job. There's a number of certification maintenance requirements that you're expected to do after you receive your RBT credential. So this is really important. So if you let your certification lapse, You have to do every single requirement over again that you initially did to become an RBT, including the exam itself. Okay. So as an RBT, you must receive ongoing supervision that meets the BACB supervisor and documentation requirements. Okay. So you need to be sure to record your supervision hours. Uh, if it's easier for you guys to write them down, that works for you. I recommend using it in like a spreadsheet. That way you have everything together. All right. Then you have to follow the RBT ethics code and self-reporting requirements and complete the renewal application every year, which includes doing another competency assessment, like I explained before, and paying fees to renew, which at this point, it's $35 every year. Okay. So you need to do all these maintenance requirements and renew to the board every single year to complete your RBT renewal. So I mentioned for the RBT renewal maintenance requirements that need to have ongoing supervision. What that looks like is you need to operate under close supervision by a qualified RBT supervisor. That supervisor must be a BCBA, a BCABA, or a BCBAD that has completed an 8-hour supervision certification. So just because they're board certified behavior analysts doesn't mean they can provide supervision. They have to have that 8-hour supervision certification. Okay. Also, you may not be related to your supervisor, be the boss of them, or employing your supervisor. So you can't be the boss of somebody providing your supervision. Okay. So some things you could do that count as supervision hours. You could develop performance expectations with your supervisor. So going over what you need to do with your clients and students counts for hours. Observing, providing behavior analytical skills training, and delivering performance feedback. So having your supervisor observe you do work with the clients, doing new continuing education skills training, and going over feedback from your supervision counts as supervision hours. Also modeling technical, professional, and ethical behavior. One of the big things that the board really likes us going over every certification cycle is ethics. So BCBAs always need to have 3 hours of supervision continuing educations every year. They want to push that onto the RBTs too, to make sure that we're practicing the right ethics for providing behavior analytical services. So the amount of supervision that you need actually depends on how much you're actually providing those services to clients and students. So the amount of supervision you need needs to cover 5% of the time you spend providing behavior analytical work every month, okay? So for example, if you spend 20 hours a month working directly in the field, you only need to spend 1 hour with your supervisor. So that's 5% of the 20 hours. The board set up a structure for supervision that all RBTs have to follow. So during your supervision hours every month, you must meet up with your supervisor face-to-face at least 2 times, okay? If you're in an ideal situation, you'll probably be working with your supervisor, so you'll probably see them every day. But if you're not, you need to make sure that you're meeting up with them at least twice a month. So meeting up doesn't actually have to be physically face-to-face. You could use things like FaceTime or webcams, video conferencing. Those count as like alternative methods to meeting up face-to-face. So if you can't regularly meet up or you're living pretty far away from them, that counts towards supervision hours. Okay. You can have small group meetings with other RBTs and your supervisors, but at least one of those 2 sessions must be an individual session between you and your supervisor every month. So what happens if we're not practicing correct supervision? Any RBT found to be non-compliant with supervision requirements will have immediate termination of the certification and a potential ineligibility to be recertified. Okay? So RBTs can only practice with a supervisor tied to their BACB account. So once you get your RBT credential, make sure that your supervisor sets you up on their BACB portal account. And make sure you check in and confirm that their name is tied to your account, okay? So we want to make sure you're covering yourself too. So if you're ever in a situation where you're not currently working or you're not being supervised, there's a way that you can apply for an inactive status that will hold your RBT credential and you won't have to cover the supervision requirements. You could apply for the status through the BACB website. Um, you just need to fill out a couple paperwork forms and apply for a small fee, but then you'll be able to keep your RBT credential and you won't have to fulfill the supervision requirements every year, but you still need to finish your yearly maintenance requirements, including the competency assessment and reapplying for the RBT credential every year if you wish to keep your credential. And along with that, we want to make sure that you're keeping track of everything that you do. So the board could audit you anytime you hold your credential. So you want to make sure you're covering self by keeping track of everything you do. That includes any days, times that you provide services, supervision times and duration of that supervision, what kind of supervision you're receiving, the types of things that you're doing for supervision, the names of your supervisors, and if you can possibly keep track of your session notes as well. So you want to document all of those things and make sure you keep them in a binder somewhere or on your computer somewhere so you have easy access to those if you ever need to submit those to the board. Okay. And you also need to make sure that you're self-reporting any changes of yourself to the board. So changes in your name. So if you get married, last name, you move, you need to change your address, and your email is a big one. So the board's main method of communication with you is email. So if you change your main email, you have to report that on the board website that you change it. Also, any other critical events that might impair your ability to provide services, the board wants to have you let them know that there's a change in that. So self-reporting an ethics requirement violation, public health or safety violations that may have happened, physical and mental conditions that may have come up for you, and not meeting maintenance requirements, the board wants you to self-report those if possible. Okay, so that's from the RBT handbook. That's a quick overview. I want to make sure you guys have read through all three of those, the handbook, the competency assessment, and the task list, and familiarize yourself with those. And you'll be good when you're taking the board certification test because you'll know what to expect. Okay.